Welcome to a Trekzone Conversation, the podcast where we dive into science fiction. Dr. Trek is back for our second last Trekzone Conversation of the year. Larry, thanks for beaming in.
Certainly. Always a pleasure, Matt.
This is a Trekzone Conversation.
And don't forget Trekzone membership available via the join button under each video on YouTube or via the trek.zone/support. Plus Trekzone's on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, and your favourite podcast feed. Find us, like, follow, and subscribe. Larry, we're halfway through Prodigy and Discovery now, with Disco carrying through the holiday season while Prodigy returns on the 6th of January. Let's start with that animated series. What are your thoughts overall of where we're at after just 4 episodes?
Can I just say, after your opening little thing there, welcome to a Trekzone. This is a Trekzone Conversation. I always want to say, or is it? But anyway.
Thank you.
No, you know what? I used to think, well, I still say that people were so worried about animated Star Trek in both of the forums. And I think Star Trek fandoms had a great comeuppance, because I think both of the animated series, especially after the way both of the live actions very differently have evolved and their history so far. One's into its 4th season, which is really only about 45, 50 shows. And the other one's but I think both of the animated series are like the most insidiously, subversively, unexpectedly popular series that people had no clue about. I think they both surprised fans, and Lower Decks totally did. And I don't know about Prodigy to the degree, but I think more and more people are figuring out that this is not just a kid's cartoon show.
Yeah.
And it's not just a sop for having Janeway in it, so all the Voyager fans will be happy, and Janeway's army will be happy. I think people are going, oh, they're really telling a story, and the characters are going to be interesting, but there's all kinds of backgrounds, and there's some big questions looming here that are really good Star Trek storytelling type questions. And my biggest reservation was about having a token alien a token enemy, an adversary that was going to be like, I was going to say, what is this going to be? Dastardly and Muttley Catch the Pigeon? I was like, or name your old cartoon series where there was like, it's the alien, the villain tries to get them every time, and every time they're defeated. And it's the only thing different than standalone Star Trek was that instead of having a villain of the week or an adversary of the week, it was the same thing all the time. And that's not what's happened. Gwen's father, the bad guy, is not front and center in every episode. He pops in and pops out. But it really is a grounded show that is about exploration and science and getting you a moral. But also there's like, and I'm going on and on here, but like, how did the protostar get there? Is it one of the, people are speculating, is it one of the ships that they sent after Voyager when they made contact in Voyager's years? Because this is only 4 or 5 years later. How did it get in the middle of the asteroid? What does he want with it? What's with all the bots on this? And what are the backgrounds of the kids that we don't know? And how did these Alpha Quadrant aliens get in the Delta? There's just a lot of interesting things, and they're doing it so well. And then the artwork is so gorgeous.
Yeah.
That it's, I just think Prodigy has surprised a lot of people who were just expecting, I'm going to sit down and use it to get my kids into Star Trek,
Yeah,
or my
absolutely.
grandkids or my nieces. Yeah.
And I think they really have studied what they want to do. They've really thought about it. They've really applied themselves to it. Just sort of seems to not be the troubled child that Discovery was, and we'll get there in a second. But we've also had some serious character development with Gwen already switching sides, seeing her father like the rest of us do, a ragtag bunch of teens getting together, and Janeway there as the mum of the group. Some nice moments already between our characters as well, Larry.
Mm-hmm. Right. And there's still a lot to go. Like people, Murph still has not had a major moment since he fell on the phaser button. He's been there, and it's more like he's literally been carried by it's like, we're going to use this, Rock Talk is like, we're going to use this character someday. This character is going to come in real handy at some point besides just, momentary comic relief. It's like they're literally carrying Murph with them and taking him everywhere. Like something's going to happen. And modern Star Trek is as much about following all the creatives' social channels, their Instagrams, and especially, and their Twitter. Yeah. And people drop little hints. And somebody has said that Murph's origins are somewhere in established canon, which is intriguing. That's another question that's out there. Now, it's not in your face, and they're not, there's not 82 different YouTube interview shows blasting that, but that's been on one of them, had that out on one of their social accounts. So, if you pay attention, there's even more mysteries to come or setups to come.
Yeah, exactly. And you mentioned Roktok before. We're still no closer to understanding how she got where she is. Obviously, we have a bit of an inkling maybe that there's this prison colony. The Diviner's brought her over. How is she sort of in a position for the Diviner to grab her? Interesting one. Or even who Dal is. He doesn't even know his own species. Certainly some interesting layers going on here as well. Have you got any theories, any deep cut theories, Larry?
No, but it just, when we put it that way, we've said from the beginning, Dal doesn't know who he is, and he's looking for that. And that was one of the temptation moments, right? It's kind of like the shore leave planet, the evil mirror universe shore leave planet there, the murder planet. Oh, and so here's a funny thing. I saw when they first, that bit in the dialogue when they're talking about naming the planet, and they have a funny moment there, it's almost like Star Trek turned in on itself with their, let's name the planet. And she says, let's call it Larry. And it's like, no, let's call it the murder planet. In Twitter somewhere, someone accosted, I think it was the Benson sisters that wrote this, and said, that's really cool that you named that after Larry Nemechek. And they were like, actually, we love Larry, but we named it for our father.
Oh. That's probably one.
And
I was going to say that's probably one honor you're happy to pass on.
Well, after I said, thank goodness, because after the Nenebek was the killer shuttle that almost killed Picard and, was a death trap, in Final Mission on Next Generation, I really couldn't have dealt with having, been the instrument of death for 2 different episodes and series. So I was really glad they just named it for but that was cute. Somebody thought that. I was like, no, that's funny. But the artwork is gorgeous. The character, I was going to say, so Dal, they tempt him with his background, and we still don't know, what he's from. But it really just now hit me that's kind of ringing true. That's the, the mystery origin story. Like Odo didn't know where he came from in the beginning, and Data actually for about half a season, we didn't know his origins. He did basically. Not all the details, of course, that unraveled, but a lot of the series have that mystery character looking for their, if they're not looking for humanity or their relationship to humanity, like Spock and Data, they're looking for their background or, something about it. Or Neelix is the orphan of his species, kind of in a way, Kes originally. So that's tapping a touchstone of Star Trek there, that looking to find themselves. Character.
Yeah, absolutely. And you mentioned the science side of things as well, and we had that in the second episode straight up. So just incredible, the stuff that we're getting with the show at the moment, and I think it's only going to continue. It's a 20 episode season coming up. We're only 4 episodes in.
Right, and they're going to break it up. They're going to come back with this, and then have a gap after 10. It was originally to be a 10 and 10 season 1, season 2, and then they announced, no, it'll all be season 1, 20 episodes, and you went, yay! But we're going to drag it out like it might as well have been 2 seasons. So we'll see. We'll see what the filler second 10 are in the whole gamut of Picard, and then into Strange New Worlds, and then Lower Decks season 2, what they're going to do, and also when they're exactly going to overlap it and have it be on Nickelodeon, per the original intention before everything came together for the remerger and Paramount Plus wanting to be the lead for everything. What does that mean when it gets to Nickelodeon, which will have a bigger, broader, potential audience than Paramount Plus, and all the kids who are used to watching Nickelodeon glom onto Star Trek for the first time. Then that'll be another exciting moment. And globally, we've had this global mishmash with Discovery lately. But that's something that, Nickelodeon is around the world now, and I would imagine Prodigy will go to Nickelodeon globally, hopefully at the same time. So that'll be interesting to see what happens then.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, on to Discovery. Now, I was going to lead this question with, it seems the troubled teenage years are behind the show. You did remind me of the international kerfuffle that happened.
But that wasn't the show's fault. That was
No.
the suits. That wasn't the yeah.
Exactly. And one thing as well that obviously all the cast came out in support of their international fans. You know, I talked about at the time, I wrote a blog that said that just a week before the announcement, the cast were in London for Destination Star Trek London, promoting the show, and then a week later the suits come out and pull that rug, and then a week after that. They did what I said they should have done and put it on the streamers where they had the streamers internationally, so as to not enrage every fan. But anyway, that's all happened. That's all in the past. Discovery's with us now, which means that I can talk about it as an international podcast.
Right. And not quite a big spoiler gap where we had worldwide fandom. Am I going to go quiet on all my streams because everyone I talk to is watching the show in America, in Canada? Am I going to do that? Am I going to do the other options or what? So yes, thank goodness that there's, and the whole Pluto TV solution didn't affect everyone in the 133 countries that Netflix had, but it did get a lot of the bigger markets and a lot of the, a lot of the audience did get back. So there is that. A lot of people are remembering what commercials look like again too.
Yes, the commercials in Star Trek, such a bad thing. There are some countries definitely that we should recognise that Discovery still isn't available yet. We're not going to stick on this point, but it does sort of they sort of have encouraged people a little bit to go find Discovery on their own terms, which means that they may not be back. We won't dwell on that. Let's move on to the plot line of season 4. They've really bedded this in. There is something else happening. It's a galaxy-wide problem, another one to solve. And we've lost a whole planet this time as well, Larry. We've only seen that on one movie.
It's a big galaxy, Mr. Scott. Yeah, it's a big world out there. A lot of Well, yes, that seems to be disappointing. But what I think they're getting better at is maybe keeping that. If they're going to insist on that galaxy threatening, it used to be big enough that it was just threatening Earth. In the old days, it was we're the only ship in the quadrant. It's coming right for Earth. Now it's like. It's the only we're the only ship in the quadrant that can do something about it, but it's going to wipe everybody out. It's not just us or local space or whatever. But the redeeming feature, I think there's two things going on. One, I think they're getting better at writing Star Trek in the serialized format. And I think those overarching disasters, instead of having a disaster of the week, it's the disaster of the season. I think trying to get back to the idea that these aren't episodes, they're chapters in a book, at least as far as that runner goes. It's not quite as scary as it's evolved now. We've been through 4 or 5 episodes. I think the 6th is dropping as we speak here tonight. But it hasn't been as omnipresent in your face, meaning that they've actually got like 3 or 4 storylines running. Yeah. Or they've got the Culber as ship's counselor line. And we're still with, Gray and Tall. And we're watching whatever's going on with Saru and whatever's going on with Burnham and Starfleet and the individual planets. People were bemoaning the fact that we wouldn't get to see what's happening with Navarre. Well, we're following up on Navarre. We had a visit with the Trill, magistrate. Yeah. Servicing, the Gray Tall storyline, which is perfect for that. So there's been a little bit of what else is going on, or are we just fighting the big bad this season? I just think they've gotten a little bit better sophisticated at handling an overall arc while still telling stories about the people and exploring the ship and this universe. You plunged us into finally the show seems like it found the skin it wishes it had all along.
Yeah.
Can we there's plenty to look around here. We just got into town. We don't want to just go to the museum, get back on the train and leave. Exactly. We would like to explore around a little bit, which is what I did the first time I visited Edinburgh, Scotland. I got off the train, sat in a museum all day, signed books, got back on the train and left and didn't get to look around. Why that popped into my head, I don't know. But it's that kind of feeling. So it's like that and the effect that you can tell, someone pointed this out and it really makes sense. People are praising the quieter character moments this season, whatever's happening. And there's been a lot more of one-to-one conversations, much less, maybe a threefer in a scene, a 3-shot, but a lot of one-to-one conversations alone. And someone said, well, that's because of the pandemic, that it was easier to film those scenes under the protocols and precautions. So, if it's a divine intervention here or whatever, but I think a lot of people have appreciated a little bit slower there's still plenty of wham bam, but I think I think it's really. I mean, what about you? Can't you tell that it feels like there's some more good old characters moments, Star Trek character moments?
Yeah, it definitely sort of seems to, whether it's pandemic induced or a creative decision or an enforced creative decision, it certainly has done the show justice. It's allowed it, as you said, it's allowed it to find its feet, put itself in this universe. Guaranteed that this is where it should have, would have, could have been all along. We've had Tilly leaving the ship now in last week. Spoiler alert: Tilly leaving, going off to Starfleet Academy. Alex Kurtzman's new show. That's a Trekzone exclusive there.
I was going to say that's a supposition though, right? No one's.
I think so. Yeah, I think it's a decent supposition because we have been hearing about that for quite some time.
And they didn't kill her off.
Exactly.
And they didn't give her something like, I'm going to go off with the farm ship and these people of my planet, that happened with
actually
Nine.
gave her meaning. Yeah.
Well, it's an obvious setup,
Yeah, exactly.
Oh, cadets, look. Yeah.
Yep. Well, and I guess too that the writers are streamlining the main cast a little bit. Something that a common complaint of earlier series, Travis Mayweather, not having too many people in the ensemble and not being able to get around to all of them in a justified manner. Chakotay. And in fact, we saw Patrick Kwok-Jordan's character actually do something off the bridge last week, which I thought was just incredible.
I had the minute I saw that, I was like, oh, look, it's Nichelle going to the K7 bar with the dribble.
Yes.
Oh, look.
At least you didn't have to do a dance in a bikini.
Yeah. No, I dawned on me the other day. I thought of that, and the next thing I thought was, oh, my God, they went meta in 1967 when she says, and how often do I get shore leave? Like, when do I get off the bridge? It was like, okay, a little commentary. And that's the way you felt with a little bit there with Patrick, with Reese, his character.
Yes.
It was like, oh, look, he's getting off the bridge. And did you notice they had an alien and a credited actress playing Ops and Con, or Helm and Nav, or what are we going to call them? It's like Detmer and Woskin were off. It's like they wanted just one scene and they didn't want to have them come in, so they gave smaller parts to. Or they put bridge time on because there's going to be switch outs, but they still had I started to call her Ariam. Sarah Middich was still back there. It was a weird, interesting mix, and it looks like you can tell that some of that may have been protocol and some of that may have been COVID related. We couldn't get them in for just one scene for one show, so we just hired some other people and put them up there. But it's the we still don't like how big is the crew of Discovery and how much of the ship is empty and what's changed from what it anything can change now, and that was part of the refit. So they've got a blank check on those kinds of things, but there's still some basics about the ship that we still don't, or what the ship is like now and what it can do. Anyway, it was interesting to watch some of those little pieces fly by, but you keep realizing that this show is 4 seasons in. Actually, it would be like a season and a half or 2 seasons of a 26er. But you realize how much we still don't know about characters, even the the bridge crew especially, but even the majors, and how much we don't know about the ship itself and all of that, and the new Federation and where we are, and they're still it's like they've got plenty of ground to cover. It's like they just started the show in some way. They just began.
Yeah, exactly. They just keep beginning, I think, is probably a little bit of the problem with Discovery. One thing I do want to address in canon, one thing I would like them to address in canon is just how exactly the inertial dampeners react to black alert and that spinning saucer, because from what we understand, it doesn't work that quickly.
See, now you're talking about when they take a hit. See, inertial dampers, to me, that's when the inertial dampers, up to a certain point, they're fine, but when they're overpowered, and if it's black alert and it's their own spore drive, that's configurable. I mean, they know what's needed for that. So to me,
you're wise, Larry.
Maintaining. I'm just saying. I never thought of it, but you brought it up. So my first reaction to that is, that's their own device, and they know how to configure for it. It's when you get hit by an external force that goes off the scale, Captain, that they're overpowered and take a second to come back.
One other thing then, Larry, what about these...
you got to do better than that, Matt. Come on.
Okay. Well, look, Star Trek ships have always had spark generators on them whenever a console gets, tapped technically by an engineer. Now we've got flamethrowers on the bridge. Is this a OH&S issue?
I know. I want to say people have been talking about the flamethrowers, and I'm like, they've always had. Look at DS9 on the Defiant. They were always, occasionally Next Generation. They're always doing that. And the bigger Next Gen and Voyagers, but the Defiant had it every. In war. In war, there are flamethrowers. It's just that I think on the older shows they didn't show you like the root of the flamethrower. It's like Discovery. Everything is like wide frame, and you see this like 19-foot flame shooting out. And I think they were a little more restrained, in what they depicted. But it's funny. That and the ceiling rocks. Yes. People are all laughing about the ceiling rocks. I'm like, well, that's always been there. It just wasn't in high def. Your plasma screen didn't show you the tiny little bridge of the Defiant in that kind of detail. But
I'm just trying to imagine the crew member that has to go around with a broom, sweeping it all up, putting it into a little dustpan, and then putting it back in the roof, ready for the next time the ship gets hit.
No. This is the 32nd century, or even the 2250s or whatever. We had Roombas. We had the little dots.
Yes, true.
Talk about connecting the dots. They were doing that with the picking up the. But yeah, you're right. I want to see them stuffing the. Flying in between. I want to see them running down a Jeffries tube and like dumping out the new. Refresh the rock.
Exactly right. Well, the DMA, Larry, as we learnt last week, the dark matter anomaly, it's seemingly engineered with a few Trek deep cuts being possible, including a Nasine, I believe. The caretaker could be responsible for this.
I've seen like people writing down their little list. For one thing, they ran down the list of. They said Metrons, Nasine. They were talking about.
Yeah.
Which was a really cool list about super aliens that could have invented this. And there was a nice call out across the universe. I said something. What about Organians? And someone said Organians said they didn't look for contact. I'm like, okay.
All right, it's all right.
Fine.
Jeez.
Okay. But it was a nice little kind of cross cut across because they mentioned the Iconians.
Yes, that's right. Yep.
It's funny. It's like whatever series you're from, everybody said, "Oh, look, they got the Metrons," or "Oh, look, they got the Iconians." I'm like, they kind of did a series check across everything. The super aliens weren't just a token original series, trifle. And the Q Continuum the Q Continuum has not had contact with them for 600 years, which would be 100 years after. We've got Q coming in Picard. So apparently 100 years after what we'll see in season 2 of Picard will be the last. I love how they've left wiggle room for some future series somewhere to show what that is, without specifying. But they didn't limit it to the Q that we know is coming in Picard, which was really cute. But something happened, and then you've still got the mystery of what happens. What happened for 600 years. So anyway, yes. But see, I just think they're getting savvier about how to write the show, and more fans are leaking into the writer's room, or being allowed to do what they want to do in the first place without it being watered down.
Yep, exactly. And one last point, we talked about coming across the series. We had Archer's theme when they announced the new space dock. Did you tear up like the rest of us, Larry, or are you cold-hearted?
No, I think it took a long road getting from there to here. To show a little Enterprise. I mean, I think it's a minority, but I think Enterprise. You can still go. You can go to a con live and see more and more as the years go by. A lot of Enterprise uniforms walking around. So it was very sweet that they get a shout out to. They've given Archer like he was on the storied captains list that Saru studied way back when, but it was nice to see them do that. And that seems to be a staple, like when it's Picard, but when Seven gets on the pad and she and Picard have their kind of, you think it's their farewell conversation before she goes away, and they bring up the Voyager theme and everybody teared up. And now you've had this with Enterprise. And I think a lot of people are sitting out there wondering, that I've heard this, DS9's getting, dissed here. Aside from the fact that Lower Decks, they're literally assembling a DS9 model kit, and he says, and it comes with a Jadzia and an Ezri, Rutherford. So, which was hysterical. So a lot of people are saying DS9's being dissed in all the modern shows, but it's there, it's coming, just, wait. But it will be cool when one of these series brings up that, you know, if you can hear it, it's so quiet. Will this be the super jazzed version of the DS9 theme we haven't heard? But, you know, when you get that, when you get that, and you got the, you know, the next gen theme when the Titan swooped in on Lower Decks.
Yeah.
So it's like all the shows are getting a shout out, except theme wise, except DS9. So I'm sure we had that still to look forward to. That's coming. You know it's coming.
Well, there is plenty more to dive into next year, Larry. Thanks for beaming in for this edition of A Trekzone Conversation. Have a great holiday break. Thanks for being here across the year. We're going to do it all again in 2022 with you. Plenty more Discovery to come. More Prodigy, Picard, Lower Decks.
Strange New Worlds.
Yes, so much Trek and so much Dr.
Coming down the
Trekking
pike.
to do. Exactly right. And of course, we can find you at Larry Nemechek's Trekland Tuesdays live, all those good things. Hopefully you're taking a holiday break though.
We're recruiting for Portal 47. I have a gift offer. Everybody look it up before the end of the holidays. Look that up too. But no, I'm excited about 2022.
Going to be very, very exciting. Larry, thanks for being here. Have a good holiday break. We'll catch you in the new year.
Same to you, my friend. Trek well.